Baltimore, Maryland, 1976. Starting around 9 p.m., the Baltimore police began to receive numerous phone calls from frightened and concerned citizens in the Old West Baltimore area of the city. That section of town was in the middle of a redevelopment as the expressway connecting to I-70 was about to open. The majority of the reports, many from confused senior citizens with TVs blaring in the background of their calls, had a large, hairy ape-man walking down Poplar Grove Street. Some people said the ape-man was over 10 feet tall. Others said it was as wide as 3 refrigerators. No matter the variances, the common trait was that it was definitely not human and stank of rotten fish guts and dog excrement. Fearing a growing panic, 2 squad cars were dispatched to the scene. When the officers arrived, they found a large crowd of residents blocking traffic. After much commotion, the police agreed to do a search of the area, even bringing in a canine unit, although the dog refused to track. Reports continued to pour in the following day. At that point, the ape-man had been identified as Bigfoot, and many people living in the area remained frightened. The police advised them on how to protect their property and remain vigilant. Welcome back. This is episode 3 of Squatch Me Now. The sounds you just heard were sent to us from an Apache reservation in Arizona just a few days ago. Certainly frightening sounds. I don't know what else that could be. Maybe you guys have some ideas. Leave us comments on Facebook and Instagram. Maybe we can figure it out together. Tonight I'll be talking to Bob. Last summer, Bob found some interesting evidence of Sasquatch coming very close to urban areas. If you visit our blog at squatchmenow.net, you'll be able to view photos that Bob has submitted of some of this evidence, which includes tracks, tree breaks, and potential structures. Here's Bob.
So, springtime. Now, Syracuse winters are long, so it's nice when the spring comes, we get out. I got 3 kids. I don't get to spend much time with them. I got to work a lot. So, when I do get to spend time with them, if it's with both of the younger boys, it's kind of a challenge. So, every now and then, I'll break away. Take one at a time, we'll take off, and we'll go. And that's what we did with the footprint. It was me and Tim. And he wanted to go to the park. I didn't really want to go to the park. I kind of like the woods. I just don't get out into it much. So I know he likes nature too. I wanted to get him into it a little bit more. And there's this spot where that creek is that comes up and it joins the neighborhood. It comes right up to the road. And it kind of widens out a little bit. It's kind of slow-moving water. There's ducks up in there. It's just really cool. And I wanted to take him down to it rather than go right around the park. I still wasn't in shape for that. So we got down there. He enjoyed it. We were having a good time. And I kind of wanted to follow the creek and see where it goes. Just, take off, get him out in there. I mean, ultimately, I'd like to get the boys up to the Adirondacks, go hiking. But, this is me trying to see if Timmy's interested. And he absolutely loved it. We had a blast. We kept going deeper into it, following the creek a little bit further. And then we got to that point. And he was at least 30 feet ahead of me. And slow moving water. You can see in the pictures. It's nothing crazy, so I wasn't worried. And I'm looking at the other side, and I'm like, oh, wow, it opens up, and you come to the footprint, and that's when life changes. That's when, now, I've already been following Bigfoot videos for some time. I have no problem. I've been convinced. Seeing the footprint takes you from being convinced to being confirmed, where you're not just convinced because of how this person talks or made a video that convinces you, but you're now going through a process where you're confirmed. There's no getting around it. When that footprint came in the sight, everything stops as if time stands still, and you hyper focus on what you're staring at. And you're trying to comprehend, because that's visible from a distance, from the other side of the creek, the way the light was hitting that. There's no explaining that. There's no, like, you're looking at a massive footprint, and you now got to explain this to yourself. You've got to comprehend this. You can't unsee what you're looking at. That's real. That's there. What is it? And everything is coming up red in your mind. Your brain's going kind of a little haywire because you're realizing that's a big footprint. There is no bear back there. That's not a deer print. That's not a coyote. And now you got to deal with this. Because the other thing that comes to your mind really quick is that's fresh. That's not old. That's in the mud. He's close. How close? I don't know. Where is he? So you go into scan mode, and now you're hyper scanning because you're convinced now. You're convinced. And then as you're hyper scanning, you realize you have a son with you. So I call him over immediately because you are assessing. Now, it took a little bit before I realized I'm safe, and that was only because of a lot of the videos that I've been watching, where these guys that I've been following, like that have helped convince me that these creatures exist, like Todd Standing or Rio, or the Survivor Med episode, which is kind of what kicked this whole thing off. They all say the same thing. You're safe. You have nothing to worry about. Go investigate. Go see. They're not going to harm you. But that takes some time to get to when you're staring at the actual footprint. It takes a minute. So anyway, I got Tim over. I had to get breathing under control. That tends to go real quick. And you don't stop looking around. You just got to constantly, where is he? Am I safe? Is he nearby? Is he watching? Is he around the tree? And it took a minute before we could kind of start to move comfortably because you're almost frozen in your spots. But anyway, you start loosening up. You eventually break out the camera. You get video rolling. You start looking for more. You start taking more pictures. You start looking around. I couldn't tell if you could see where it looks like. If he's crossing the creek, you could see where he would step up. Like even on our side, it's kind of pushed down a little bit. There's no print, but you can visualize it. Kind of like on the other side, you can visualize where they've been possibly stepping. You just can't. You don't see the actual print. It's just a visual. That was the. Anyway.
Now, where did you find the huts that you? You guys found some huts. Where did you?
Okay.
Yeah.
So the huts, I took 2 trips across the creek. The first one, when we found the footprint, I didn't take Timmy across. There's no real good way to go across, and I wasn't prepared for it anyway. So it was the next day I was able to get my older kid to go with me. And then that's when we had found the way. There's 2 ways that we can get across. Now, the huts, if you were to follow that trackway to where all the brush is pushed out, the huts are out in the woods in that location. So if you look south, there's 2 log points that cross over. So we basically came up. There's a clearing on the other side of where everything's kind of pushed down, and the huts are further back up in that area. And you've got the woven one, which is really cool. The location of that one's kind of neat, the way that the wood's laid out. You got the one which was surrounded by mud, and then you've got the A-frame one, which to me is the most impressive. That's if that can be, and again, if any of this stuff can be explained away, by all means, go ahead and do so. I had to go through the whole battle of, do I even want to talk about this to people? But I'm excited about it. I can't seem to shut up about it. I told everybody at work the next day. To me, it's extremely cool.
I think in the totality, I think in the totality of everything you found, it's very interesting. I mean, if it had just been the tracks, or if it had just been the huts, or, you know, if it had just been the tree breaks, separately, those could maybe, I mean, the thing with the footprints is that, you know, I'm from the South. We deal with, you know, pluff mud and that kind of stuff all the time. When you step in that kind of deep mud, it's not like, you can't explain it away the way that skeptics do with snow. You know, they say, oh, that was a human footprint in snow, and the snow melted and then refroze and melted and refroze, and it got bigger. With mud, it like actually typically will suck back in on itself, so the track may actually be a little bit smaller than the original foot. So that's what, I mean, specifically with these tracks that you found, I thought that was very interesting. And then just the combination, the one hut that almost looks woven or more nest-like. I mean, what was that? Something that really I thought was interesting is, what is that sort of different color soil that almost leads in like a path straight into, was that just where the topsoil had been turned up or something from walking back and forth? I mean, it's
crushed wood.
It's crushed wood, really?
Yes. It's where a log was down and it's all trampled. It's completely crushed.
Interesting. Huh.
And it kind of goes into that. Now that one, I've got an explanation for that.
Okay.
I can visually see how a tree could have possibly fallen in that direction, took out the trees in its direction, which would have formed that shape.
Okay.
But then you're left with trees fall all the time. Why is that area compressed down, and why inside of that little funnel is it kind of hollowed out like you could tell something might have been laying around in there?
Right.
You know, why would that section, and then to the left of that, the log becomes, you know, visible again and not completely compressed? Right. Could it be the animals? Sure, could be. That whole thing can be almost taken off the table.
Right. And that's what we want to do.
But it's a cool picture.
I think it's the coolest picture of all the quote-unquote huts. But, yeah, I mean, the others certainly looked more deliberately stacked in a certain way, I guess, or laid the logs. But that one was just interesting because it looks more woven, looks more like a nest. And if you've ever listened to Sasquatch Chronicles, there's at least one or two episodes where those guys talk about these really woven, like, tunnel structures that were just running along, like, the inside of a tree line. But they would run for miles, and it looked like it was almost like something that, you know, something was traveling through, using it as a, sort of a cover that they could, you know, travel long distances through. So I thought that was interesting, just because it definitely looked like a circular, woven type structure. But so tell us about the other huts other than, you know, the nest-looking one.
Let's go. I wanted something that you haven't mentioned about the nest-looking one.
Sure.
Yeah. Just for a second.
Absolutely.
I sent you a photo and a video with that nest-looking one. Now, there's a picture of this really large tree going up on an angle, and it's got these almost like knobs all at the end. You could visualize steps. What's neat about that is if you were to come out that hut, that tree is right there. It would be easy for any type of animal to scale that tree, take the branch that's at the top. That branch is huge, comes all the way across that open valley, and comes down right to where the water is. And it comes down into more logs. So you have a hut, and you have the ability to get up high right away and make it completely concealed right to where that creek is. That is one of the coolest features I found about that hut. I took it on a video so that you could see the entire path, how he could skip, being out in the open, and get from the creek to the hut, back and forth.
Wow, that's pretty cool. We'll include some of those photos and videos and the YouTube version of this podcast that will actually have some visuals involved. Cool.
Now, back to the other huts. You want to talk about the A-frame one?
Sure.
So that one's kind of in the thick. Everything back there is pretty much off path. You're just stepping over branches, weaving your way through trees, and then you come upon that one. And if you kind of zoom out, I took a video of that. If you zoom out and you really look at that tree, you can see that it was bent twice. It was pushed in one direction, pulled in another, and then the top itself was yanked out. And none of the big logs on the wall side or the hut side are being used to cover the top of the tree to help keep it down. And you can see that by the way that where it's bent and it's breaking out, there was just enough pressure applied to put that tree right, you know, if it was a Sasquatch, he had enough power to put it right where he needed it. You know, not too much where it broke off and maybe got weak, you know, and not too little to where it's going to fly back up. And then those logs are stacked up by each other almost to like make a bluff or a little hide. And it's one of the coolest things that you see because explain that. A tree fell on it. Explain the path. Maybe it was a tree from this direction. Okay, but then you had to have another one from that direction fall, another one from this direction fall. They all had to fall before the tree was broken because none of them are on top of the bent tree.
Right. That's crazy.
It's something to think about. It was just not natural anymore at this point. Everything that I was walking to up to that point was a natural forest. And suddenly that's way too coincidental.
Right. Well, I mean, that, like I said, the tracks, you know, all of it combined is pretty interesting stuff. How big around was that tree that was bent, do you think? What was the diameter of that, do you think?
I'm not sure, sir. I'd be guessing at least 3 inches.
Yeah. Okay.
2-3 inches.
Right.
Minimum 2. I mean, you can see it from a distance. It's not.
Yeah, it looked big. Certainly not something someone could do with a hand.
Okay, well, especially even at the height that it's at. I can't even reach the top of it.
Right.
Neither one of them. And then the tree rake that the photo with me in it was the second trip back there with my wife. Nathan and I walked through that path on the first trip back there, and maybe I overlooked it, but I didn't see it until the second trip where my wife and I walked back in the same path.
Now, had you guys had any bad weather? Had you guys had any bad weather during the time? No? Yeah, so there wouldn't have been like crazy winds that would have broken that tree or anything.
No, there's nothing on the ground to indicate that anything would have hit it. Now there's a second tree where it's coming up where a piece is missing completely, but who knows? There's still nothing on the ground to indicate that something had fallen on it.
Right.
And I can't tell by looking at the tree break itself because there was a 20-day spread between the first trip back and the second trip back.
Okay.
Yeah, it may have still been white. And again, I could have just overlooked it the first time and it could be nothing, but one hell of a coincidence to find that many things clustered.
Right, absolutely. And,
and it's not even that I'm surprised about it, because you've got a gentleman, I'm sure you know who he is, named Rio, who put the whole Go Out and See video series out there talking about how these things are much closer than people think.
Right.
Yeah, I just didn't think it would be this close.
Yeah, I mean, how close is that to your house? How close is that location, would you say?
I can walk there and be there in 5 minutes.
Oh, wow. So definitely close, too close for comfort.
No, it's not even that I'm worried. If these things are hanging out back there, which obviously they have, there's not been one person reporting anything. So they are being concealed as can be. They are not exposing themselves. They're not hurting anyone, that's for sure. There really is nothing to be worried about. It's just the knowledge that that they may actually be there, that it might be this close. That, you know, again, it's the whole going from I'm being convinced to I have something that is confirmed. Right. That's a confirmation. And again, the guys at the shop were, they're laughing their heads off at me. They're having a good time with it. Yeah, you know. Then you explain this, okay? That's a cool photo. You explain it.
Yeah.
That's what I found.
Yeah, the footprints are, I mean, and again, I said this in my post, but I think, you know, if you look, there, it definitely looks like there's a trackway going underwater. There's a few steps, maybe at least one step in the water as it stepped across the creek. But a lot of people ask, well, why is there only one footprint? Well, first of all, do you have any idea how long the stride is on these guys? And so from one footprint to the next is pretty long, and then you have to have the right conditions to create a footprint in the first place, right? Which is not necessarily common.
And like I had sent you in that one photo, the only reason that footprint even stood out is because on that when you go to the left and you shoot that foot from the left, he's up on a rock.
Right. Yeah.
That you can see, you can't really see it from the main ones when you're basically toe on or basically looking at it straight on. But you get to that left, you can tell he didn't sink just because he stepped up on a rock at that point. You can clearly see the rock.
Right. So what do you think? What do you think that this phenomenon is? What do you think these creatures are?
I think they're flesh and blood. I think they are another animal. They are another creature. They are intelligent. I don't doubt that at all. I mean, here's the thing. I was not a Bigfoot enthusiast or a believer at all. I had no reason to be. It was never an interest in my life until just like a few years ago. And I watched a video, and for the skeptics that are listening to this, just like I was, because it cared less, what happens is if life happens to throw even just one convincing video in front of your face and you watch it, you're faced with a choice at that point to either blow it off, a video that just pretty much convinced you. You can either blow it off or you can go to another video. And once you choose to look at another video, it's all over. You're never going to stop looking at another video because you become fascinated at the thought that this mythical creature could possibly exist. And what you find out is it's not like there's only 5 Bigfoot videos out there or a handful of evidence. I still haven't seen all the Bigfoot videos. I've been watching for years. It's an endless supply, and the more technology increases, the more evidence we have, and then the more evidence we have, the more people are coming out with it. And now you've got just a slew of Bigfoot videos. You've got every type of evidence possible. And it's almost a fascinating thing to watch happen as this creature moves from the realm of mythology to the realm of reality. And you've got all these people that, like, how to hunt. There's a guy with, a real tough guy, not afraid to come forward and say, I've seen them. These things are real. It is not a joke. And then he's sharing everyone else's stories because, for the longest time, if you announced that you believed in it, you were mocked or made fun of. It's a funny thing to laugh at, but it's real. And they really are more abundant than people think. There really are more locations than people think. And, you've got everything that is available. Well, we don't have a body. We've got everything else. We've got blood samples, DNA, footprints, videos, thermal, night vision. And what more do you need? You've got stories where they're chasing them down while on the phone with 911, shooting them, getting the prints, getting blood samples, getting hair samples, and then someone's got to tell you that it was imaginary, the whole thing was made up. Yeah, all 5 of you are crazy.
Yeah.
This just happened.
Right.
It's almost to the point of ridiculous now at this point. If you don't realize that Sasquatch exists, it's because you put no time or effort into even trying to figure out if they do. And that's fine, because that's the way I lived the majority of my life. It was never a second thought in my mind until I went down the stupid rabbit hole, watched the second video, and then I was hooked.
Yep. Absolutely. It's a very interesting subject. And, I don't even think it's necessarily a Bigfoot belief issue. I think most people, obviously, if you see one, I haven't seen one. I guess you haven't seen one either. So, but we're not believing, we're inferring. We're taking all of this evidence that's out there and saying, we can make a reasonable inference that there is something here.
Right.
I think you're absolutely right. I think there's definitely, if nothing else, the scientific community needs to be taking this much more seriously and looking into it. And then that gets into the question of, does the scientific community at some level already know about it? How much does the government know about it? Is this being covered up for any reason? I've heard theories that the national park system were created almost as a Native American reservation. So there's lots of, once you, like you said, once you jump down that rabbit hole and dig into the evidence, it just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah, man. Thanks a lot for giving us this insight into what's going on near you. You put out some pretty interesting evidence there, and I hope it just spreads out a little bit further. More people get to see it and take a look at your find, because I think it's very interesting. And
Cool.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, I really appreciate it, Bob. Thanks for talking to me, and hope you have a great weekend. And if you find anything else, let us know.
That's all for tonight, guys. Please follow us at Squatch Me Now on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And visit our website, squatchmenow.net, for links to everything Squatch Me Now. Until next time, we'll see you on social media, and keep on squatching.